sebaceous excretions, they call them, all over my head when I was younger, and they persisted with all the shampoos. Since I've gone this way, I have a perfectly healthy scalp. My hair is coming back. I don't smell. My pits don't smell. I could wear my clothes for a week if I wanted to.
Let me ask you, Mr. X, let me ask you a couple questions, okay? First of all, how old are you? How old are you?
I am 62.
And what's your hair like? Color, thickness?
It is. It was thin on top, but it's white and beautiful everywhere else. Long white beard, long white hair.
How interesting is that? Well, Mr. X, that's some great information. I'm going to start to dig into that, and I can see what you're saying. I can totally see your point. I always had a problem with people just smearing stuff all over their skin as if they were, as if the skin was some inert covering of some kind that was separated from the rest of the body, and that's really why I came out with these products that I was talking about.
Well, I got to do some.
That's some good information, Mr. X. Thank you.
All right. There's some more specifics, but
yeah,
anyway,
I'd love to hear some more. I want to get a couple more calls in, and I also we have a guest coming up at the bottom of the hour. But if you want to call back, I'd love to talk to you some more. It's very intriguing. All right, I'm going to let you go, Mr. X. Hope you're not. Are you doing some moonshine out there in the woods in Tennessee? You don't do that probably, Mr. X. You sound too healthy for that. All right, thanks for your call. That was definitely interesting. All right, Paul in New York, what's up? Welcome to the bright side.
How you doing, folks? This is Ben.
Doing good.
That's good.
Is this chicken foot, Paul? Chicken foot? Is this chicken foot, Paul? No.
No.
No, another Paul. Okay, what's up, Paul? How can I help?
Paulie Y. Basically, I was on the beach with the, bathing suit. You got that mesh in the bathing suit, and it scratched me all up down there.
Scratched you all up down there? The mesh did?
Yeah. I didn't realize it was happening.
What is it, chain mail or something? Is it like metallic? How I don't understand how that happened.
I don't. There might have been some sand in my bathing suit.
So you're all scratched up down there. Is that what you're telling me, Paul?
Yeah, really bad.
Get yourself some omega-6 healing cream. You could use that. You got to get that on the internet, truthtreatments.com. If you want to go to the drugstore, get some zinc oxide. Zinc oxide is one of the great all-around healing remedies that you can get at a drugstore. I'm sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
Okay, wait. I want to write this down because I'm going crazy here. Zinc oxide?
Zinc oxide for all superficial skin wounding emergencies. It's not magic or anything, and omega-6 healing cream and vitamin C is probably more effective. But if you can, you got an emergency, you can get zinc oxide pretty much anywhere, any drugstore.
Okay.
Sometimes they keep it in the back. Sometimes they keep it in the pharmacy.
Okay, zinc oxide, right?
Zinc oxide paste. It's white. The good stuff is white. Yeah, is that it?
Put it on my nose.
Yeah, it's good for your nose. It's good sunscreen. Good for babies. Good for diaper rash. Zinc oxide is amazing. Your skin stores zinc. In normal skin, there's a bunch of zinc, and every time you cut yourself, the zinc sort of migrates to the area, to the cut, to accelerate its healing. Zinc is extremely important for stimulating the production of collagen.
Okay.
And so topically,
I hear that thing going off, but I have a few other questions I got to ask you about.
You want to call tomorrow? I got a guest coming up at the bottom of the hour, but you're welcome to call tomorrow, Paul. Take your first up. Tell our call screener we left you on hold, and I'll get you first up. All right, that's all the time we got for phone calls here. We got Jonathan Graff coming up at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk about hair loss. You're listening to The Bright Side on Genesis Communication Network. We'll be back after this. All right, we are back on The Bright Side. Thank you for joining us. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific, 10 to 11 Central, and 24/7 on our archive page, brightsideben.com. Also our blogs, pharmacistben.com and criticalhealthnews.com. I am pleased to welcome to our show, To the Bright Side, Jonathan Graff. Jonathan is the Director of Clinical Education at Apira Science. I hope I said that right. He's a speaker, and he's also an expert in hair loss. And we're going to talk about the 3 ways, at least Jonathan's 3 ways, of reversing hair loss. The only 3 ways of reversing hair loss. Welcome to The Bright Side, please, Jonathan Graff. Greetings, Jonathan.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Ben.
Thank you for wanting to be on. Appreciate it. So you're a hair expert, huh? Is that fair?
Well, that's what they're calling me.
Okay.
I actually worked with the top doctors in the United States for over 10 years, helping run their clinics, and spoke to, I think the last count was over 11,000 individual patients who came in to talk about their hair loss options.
Now, how did you get
during that time?
How did you develop this expertise? You're not a medical doctor, correct?
No, I'm not. I'm the Director of Clinical Research and Education at Apira Science.
Okay.
It's close with the Apira. But
okay.
Because of the background I have,
And in working with the top researchers in hair loss options and the top medical doctors who specialize in hair loss in the country for so long, basically I take the technology and the expertise of those doctors, and my job at that time was largely explaining it to the layman who came in. Medical doctors, though brilliant, aren't always the best person to explain those options to a layman.
They're not always brilliant either, FYI.
Well,
just saying.
I speak at a lot of medical conventions, so I think a judicious silence is my best reply to that.
Okay, good. That's fair. That's fair. All right. So here's the deal, though. Are you you're an educator, though, primarily? Is that your background, education?
Yes, I'm largely an educator.
Got it.
My job is I speak at medical conventions, dermatology conventions, surgical, et cetera, on here are the options that are available that are clinically tested and proven, and also FDA cleared. That's very important, especially in a medical thing. While FDA clearance doesn't denote necessarily that it works, I'm a fan of anything that works.
It's safe.
It's safe. It's also specifically for hair loss, you have to prove efficacy also, depending on
what do they mean? How do they define it? I'm a pharmacist. You may know this. I'm a pharmacist, and I've compounded lots of minoxidil. In fact, that was one of the first products I ever made was high concentrations of minoxidil, and I know a lot about minoxidil. Here's the deal. What I saw with some of these remedies, specifically minoxidil, which back in the day was the only really effective topical product, it probably still is the only effective topical product that you can use for hair loss, you always got peach fuzz. You know what I'm saying? So how are they defining effectiveness?
Well, you can define there's a clinical effectiveness and there's cosmetic efficacy.
Okay.
You can say, look, this regrew hair. Well, okay, but cosmetically, to your average layman, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Do I look different with that much hair?
Yes.
That's what's important. It's like saying, look, you can lose a certain amount of weight with this diet. Well, yes, but if I look the same, what difference does it make?
Exactly. So if you get 22% more hair, but nobody notices the difference, well, who cares, right?
Well, for minoxidil, I also I remember when minoxidil was prescription only. It's a high blood pressure medicine.
A nasty drug, FYI. One of the nastiest antihypertensives out there. Well, they don't even use it anymore. It's so nasty.
No. When applied topically, though, all the science behind it. I actually worked with one of the doctors who did the clinical studies on it way back when for hair loss. And basically, it fools your hair into thinking it's more alive than it is. It puts it on a respirator is the easiest way to explain it.
Because of the blood supply. It increases blood supply probably and hormones and such. Is that the idea?
Basically, yes. That also means you apply it topically, preferably twice a day, forever. If you stop using it, if you use it for 5 years and stop, you'll have 5 years of hair loss probably within a year because you took it off the respirator, so it dies.
So now here's the question that I want to ask you, and I want to get to these other two strategies. Don't you think it'd be more appropriate if we really are interested in keeping the hair on the head or reversing hair loss that we figure out why are we losing it in the first place?
Well, for most people, there are different types of hair loss.
Okay.
Most people suffer from androgenetic alopecia, which is just a fancy way of saying genetic inherited hair loss. That's a combination of genetics and hormones. Genetically, every hair on your head is programmed to be more or less susceptible to different hormones that are in your body. The weak hair goes, the strong hair stays. How much weak hair did you inherit? That's how bald you're going to be. You don't have a lot to say about that.
It's strictly a factor of inheritance, or is that just one of the factors?
Well, that's the fact. That's the major factor for genetic hair loss, which is the type of hair loss most people have. There are different types of hair loss out there, which is why when I would see people in consultation, I'm losing my hair because of this, because of stress, because of my hormones, because of I used to swim in a pool all the time, or I wear hats all the time. In most cases, it's not the case.
Mm-hmm. People have a lot of beliefs and ideas about what their hair loss is. They attribute their hair loss to certain things, and it's just kind of like superstition or just old wives' tales kind of wives'
probably,
tales.
But I think I put a charismatic spin on it and then say that we will accept something we feel we have some control over. However, I think it's also like yes, and I'm overweight because I'm big boned. No, I swallow a lot of pizzas and beer and don't exercise.
Okay.
How
about pizzas and beer and not exercising and hair? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. How about pizzas and beer and not exercising and hair loss, which doesn't seem like they'd be connected, but could there be a connection?
No, I don't. There has been no specific clinical study against placebo to show that. How about that?
All right. How about nutritional deficiency?
Well, The type, yes, but the type of hair loss that comes from different factors they don't look the same.
Uh-huh.
Much like a chemical burn doesn't look like a sunburn.
Got it. So you can tell by looking at somebody's head or hair loss what kind of hair loss they're dealing with? Can you as an expert do that?
A doctor can. Because genetic hair loss is a medical condition, you need a doctor to diagnose that. But there are certain things that has a look to it. In men, if you're losing hair specifically on the top of your head, not the sides, use a little bit of logic. If it's because I wash my hair differently or I have a dirty scalp. The top of your head is not dirtier than the sides of your head. That's not logical. There would be a lot more bald homeless men, and I've never seen one.
Okay, get your point. I got your point there. So the middle part.
Nutritional hair loss tends to happen all over your head, not just in a specific area.
It's thin, like your hair will thin, it'll come out more evenly distributed as it falls out.
In men, genetic hair loss tends to happen from the top of the ears up. In that whole area, it can recede, it can get thin, you can lose the whole area, you can get a bald spot that kind of gets wider. In women who lose hair just as often as men, it just looks different because they have different hormones. You see that part line that just gets wider. You see the general thinning through the whole front and top area. Sometimes women can also lose hair globally or all over their head genetically, which is why there are different treatments available and things like hair transplantation, for instance. While they work on women, a lot of women are not good candidates because there's nowhere to take the hair from if they're losing it all over their head.
Have you heard of this phenomena or this concept called epigenetics?
Epigenetics?
Have you heard of that? EPI, epigenetics?
No, but it sounds like it's something to do with a skin condition.
No. Epi meaning transcendent to or above genetics. It describes the factors that turn the genes on and off as epigenetic factors. But I was just wondering if you had heard of that.
I have a bit because there's some research that's being done right now for different factors that might be able to flip those switches.
Yes, exactly. That's what epigenetics is about. All right, well, we got to take a break, Jonathan. I want to get to these other two strategies or two. They're not really, one is a strategy. We'll get to these two other secrets, if you will, for reversing hair loss. We're talking to Jonathan Graff, Director of Clinical Education at Appear Science about hair loss. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side on the Genesis Communication Network. Okay, we are back on The Bright Side talking to Jonathan Graff, Director of Clinical Education at Appear Science, speaker, medical conventions, seminars, media events around the country and abroad. And hair expert. We're talking about hair loss. Jonathan, so 3 ways. You got 3 secrets, as you say. And by the way, are you just educating people about this, or what does Appear Science do?
Well, Appear Science is it's a manufacturing company. It's a company that does research into and produces products specifically for skin and hair treatments using a technology called low-level light therapy or phototherapy. They produce phototherapy devices for skin and hair.
Okay, so that's one of your secrets, actually. So we got minoxidil. That's not much of a secret because it doesn't really work very well, and you got to deal with minoxidil and get a prescription. What's the second one?
Well, minoxidil is now over the counter. The problem with minoxidil is really just getting people to do it enough for it to work.
The over-the-counter stuff is really mild, though. It's like 1% or 2%. It's
about 5%. Yeah.
Is it 5%?
Yes, and I've seen people get results with it. It's difficult to see how well those results can affect a person because most people don't use it enough to get the best results possible. And that's the problem with most hair loss treatments. Like the biggest problem with weight loss treatments is people stop before they're thin. Mm-hmm. They require ongoing treatment over a long period of time, which is very difficult to sustain for the best results. Now, I'm not against anything, even the nostrums people may be trying. I'm for anything that works. There's very little that has been clinically shown to work. So that combination of do anything that works, but I'm a cynic.
Okay, so we got the minoxidil. Then what's the second one?
There's minoxidil. There's a drug called finasteride, which is known by the brand name Propecia right now.
Prostar for prostates too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a prostate medication under a much higher dose. A small dose, 1 milligram of finasteride, is called Propecia. What it does is simply it stops the body from converting testosterone into dihydrotestosterone or DHT. In men, DHT is the main hormone that triggers genetic hair loss. So if you suppress the production of that hormone, the hair loss stops, and it's been clinically shown very effective. Of course, it's a prescription drug, so speak to your doctor about it. There are the possibility of side effects, sexual side effects, which frighten a lot of men. It's a prescription drug, though. I've seen people get very good results with it.
Yeah.
It does require you speak to a doctor.